At this time, we will call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for the purpose of agenda review for next week's meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer?
Here.
Commissioner Allen? Here. Commissioner Klicka? He's here in the building.
He's in the building.
Commissioner Osterhaus? Here. Commissioner Ashcraft?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
And Chairman Eilert.
Here. We do have a quorum present. The first item on the consent agenda, there's only one, and that's the business session minutes. That will stay on consent. Maybe we can add something else to it. Action agenda, item number 2.
Resolution number WD 18-007. Conduct a public hearing and consider authorizing funds for Johnson County wastewater infrastructure improvement projects in an amount not to exceed $1,334,171.44.
Ms. Pekarik.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Susan Pekarik with Wastewater. This is a request. This is a multi-project briefing sheet, or what I call a multi-project briefing sheet. These are projects that are generally routine in nature. We bring you these multi-project briefing sheets 2 to 3 times a year. There are several different sections in the briefing sheet for funding requests. Total funding request, is a nice round number, $1,344,171.44. So our funding requests include our collection system asset renewal funds. These are projects that we identify through our asset management program. We're requesting $600,000 in that section. The second item is a wheel loader. This particular piece of equipment will help us load, in particular when we're doing repairs on manholes. We can't lift anything larger than sections on the 4-foot diameter manhole. A lot of our manholes are larger than that. So as we get into doing more rehabilitation on our manholes, instead of contracting that out or renting a piece of equipment, we've identified this particular piece of equipment that will help us do that. The next section is for SCADA network communications and improvements. So SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. I think it's a fancy word for we use computers to do a lot of monitoring, operating, and alarming us when we have issues at our pump stations and our treatment facilities. This particular request is to provide fiber in places where we don't have it, so that increases our bandwidth. All of the SCADA communication is on a separate, it's not routed through the county's network. We keep that on separate fiber, so no other public or private fiber. We don't share that, I should say. The last request is for our asset management program. That's to continue to advance that program. We have some things we want to accomplish there. That includes things like we're going to do some enhancements to our computerized maintenance management system, enhance some of our data management processes. For example, when we get new assets, when we do a capital project, we have new assets, we want to automate putting those new assets into our data system. It'll save us a great deal of time. In addition, while we've been focusing on our collection system outside of the treatment plant fences, we now need to focus on locating our underground assets inside the treatment plants and our pump stations, and so that's also included as part of this request. All of these projects were included in our capital improvement program and financial plan that we presented to the board last May.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Pekarik, maybe before next week we could visit on this. I'd be interested in learning a little bit more about your cost-benefit analysis on that large vehicle and the efficacy of using bond proceeds for the communications equipment in particular.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, this does require a public hearing. It'll remain on action. Next item.
Item number 3, resolution number WD 18-017. Conduct a public hearing and consider authorizing funds for the construction phase of the Indian Creek Middle Basin Contract 28, Douglas L. Smith Middle Basin Wastewater Treatment Facility, Building 2, Building 6, and Chlorine Chamber Improvement Project in an amount not to exceed $1,407,000.
Ms. Picaric.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Again, Susan Picaric. So this request is for construction phase funding of a project that we've bid at our Douglas Smith Middle Basin facility, which is located at College and 69 Highway in the southeastern corner. We'll have a map put up before you for next week. So we did some previous studies and evaluations, and we identified 2 buildings and 2 structures and some site work that needed to be completed on site. We completed the design and bid the project, and an award of the project will be the next agenda item. I'll be
Okay,
happy to answer any
questions?
questions.
Well, again, this is a public hearing required, so it will remain on action. Next item.
Item number 4, invitation for bid number 2018-010. Consider authorizing a contract with Crossland Heavy Contractors Incorporated to construct the Indian Creek Middle Basin Contract 28, Douglas L. Smith Middle Basin Wastewater Treatment Facility, Building 2, Building 6, and Chlorine Chamber Improvement Project in an amount not to exceed $1,071,000.
Ms. Picaric.
Chairman, Susan McCarrick with Wastewater again. This is a companion to the previous item. We opened bids on this particular project at Middle Basin on March 26th. We ended up having 6 bidders, and Crossland Heavy Constructors was the low bid.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Ms. McCarrick, I'd be interested when we meet next week if you could educate me a little bit about the probable cost estimate or whatever your delimiter is on that project.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Well, this is a companion item to the previous one, so it will remain on action. You know, I would just make this comment. In our regular business session, we attended to a lot of projects. Next week, there will also be additional projects, and I want to commend the staff for continuing to carry on an active asset management. There's examples all across the country and even in the metro area where basic services such as this are not maintained on a regular basis, and it leads to big major problems down the road. So thank you for the type of asset management work that you have in process.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the support of the board for that.
Well said.
All right, next item.
Item number 5, resolution number 020-18, application SE-CU-3376AU. Consider a request from Jeff Silverich, applicant, Red Oak Landscaping, and JLD Land Company, LLC, landowner, for conditional use permit renewal for outdoor storage on 2 acres located at 20978 Floyd Street on property zone PEC 3, Planned Light Industrial Park District in Section 18, Township 15, Range 25.
Mr. Leipzig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig, Planning Development Codes. This item was brought before you as a renewal of a conditional use permit. It was originally approved in 2007 with a 10-year term. The applicant has requested a 15-year term. This property, in looking at this, looking at the past history with codes, there's been no violations at all previously. And because of that, of the great condition of it, all of the original terms are still in place in terms of the original use of the property, and so staff is supportive of the 15-year term as well.
Okay, questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Leipzig, this question has come up before. I'm not sure it's been a question that we've discussed, but when does a conditional use permit just get approved, and so it doesn't have to keep coming back, and the homeowner doesn't have to keep scheduling it and hiring attorneys or whatever it is they do? And I don't want to necessarily focus on this one in particular, but generally, is that something that you consider when these things come forward? And I know there are laws out there, but sometimes those laws, policies are created in a bygone era, and it doesn't make sense or in some ways, it may not make sense to do it just because we have always done it that way. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, Commissioner, at least I think I do. I will give you my philosophical answer.
Fair
I think
enough.
on these, there's some of these that we need to look at changing. For example, we often have conditional use permits for terms for buildings for 10 years or 15 years. In that particular case, the building itself is really permanent, so it really doesn't make a lot of sense to issue a conditional use permit that has to be brought before you for review. So I'd like to look at that, kind of long-term, phasing those out. However, like in this type of use where you have an outdoor storage yard, or our next item that's coming up, for example, with the racetrack, conditional use gives staff and you all an additional level of review. So if there are problems with particular uses or things that need to change as the use of the property can change, that can be revised or incorporated into that conditional use permit. I think cases where you have outdoor storage yards or kind of unique uses that you want to really be able to review and evaluate they're somewhat temporary, so they certainly make sense. I don't agree with utilizing conditional use permits for structures or buildings. I think it just because they're permitted anyway, and I think oftentimes that creates some additional confusion for you, for staff, and the applicant too.
Thank you.
Those are good comments, but we need to keep in mind that a conditional use permit most of the time allows an activity in a zoning district which would not otherwise be allowed. And so when you talk about spatial projects, let's say close to or within a residential district, there is a specific good purpose for that process. So, okay. All right. This is a planning item. We'll stay on action. Next one.
Item number 6, resolution number 022-18 and resolution number 023-18, application numbers SE-PEC3-3379AU, SE-PDP-FDP-3378AU, and SE-CU-3380AU. Consider a request from Stonegate Motor Plaza, Joe Efforts, applicant, and Joseph Efforts Farms, LLC, landowner, for rezoning from RUR, Rural District, to PEC-3, Planned Research, Development, and Light Industrial Park District, a preliminary and final development plan for construction of an expanded motor vehicle test track and a conditional use permit for the use of an expanded motor vehicle test track on an 80-acre site located near the northwest corner, 207th Street and Metcalf Avenue.
Jay.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig. This item was brought to you previously at 207th and Metcalf for this motor vehicle test track by Joe Efforts. He's requesting an expansion of the track, really to enable safety and to make it more marketable. The track, as he worked with his track designer and looked at the various components of it, was just a little bit too small. So he was expanded it slightly, and I will show you there. The graphic there shows the expanded area of the track. It's still a little over about a mile. It does encroach closer to some residential areas north of the track. However, staff had utilized a sound expert previously, and he conducted some new evaluations and calculations on the noise level and the increase in noise. And in his report, with the new expanded area of the track will only increase the noise about 2 decibels, which I believe is even less than a standard conversation between two people. So the noise is fairly minimal. It was recommended for approval by the Southeast Zoning Board on April 4th. There was one person that was there. He didn't speak on the item, just listen. But as I said, we did have our sound noise expert available to answer any questions if those did come up.
Okay, questions? Mr. Clickham?
Go ahead, Commissioner Ashcraft, and then I'll go ahead.
Okay.
Well, I was just wondering if there's been proper or full notification of the neighbors to the north, because change like this, if people are taken by surprise, can have maybe a different direction than what a sound expert would suggest.
Yes, that is correct. It was into our notification process. Those neighbors had also talked with each other as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Clicken.
Jay, I appreciate again to extend a bit of kudos for all the work that you're doing to help Joe. I know it's been a kind of a bumpy ride for him to get this thing going in the different phases. The question I have at this point, at what point will the construction begin and be completed on the track?
Commissioner, I don't know the answer to when it will be completed. I believe he wants to start construction still this spring, the end of the month.
Okay. Thanks so
And
much.
this also helps not only with the track, but also helps with the sale of his garage units or storage units adjacent to it. So it's part of the overall package that makes it more marketable.
To my fellow commissioners, if you ever get the chance to go out and take a look at this, it's really kind of an interesting concept. It's kind of a car condo, and if you get a chance to go through through those condos and what these folks have done it's not only the mechanic, the auto side, but it's really a social gathering of folks that have the same interest here. And getting this track has been a major component to helping that project start moving into phase 3 and 4.
Is that where you keep your Maserati?
I wish.
Okay, any other questions? Well, again, this is a planning item, so it will stay on action. Are there any other items to be reviewed?
No, sir.
Okay, that concludes our agenda review. We are adjourned from that session. We continue to be in recess, and we'll begin our executive session at 11:15. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.